I'm Smiley's Garden. I'm here, excited here to talk with Josh from Intergalactic Garden. Um, and Josh, I don't know if you want to take a sec, just kind of introduce yourself, and this is gonna be
Sure.
me getting to know you too. So
Yep, I'm Josh, like you said, from Intergalactic. Um, I have two businesses. One is a nonprofit that is in Southeast Detroit, where we focus on removing landfill waste. We take it from restaurants or leftover areas. Instead of it going to a landfill, we find a repurpose for it, which is often compost or some sort of amendment, which is now turning into these cool pellets with a veg and a bloom that we're offering now as well. And then I also have Intergalactic Gardens, which is more cannabis driven. It's breeding and also being more specific on using these amendments and applying them very easily in the garden with a water only system, growing some dank buds.
oh yeah, man. Yeah, I've been kind of following a fan. Like I was explaining last night a little bit that I kind of came across your path because of the sunshine. And I don't know if you wanted. I've never really heard you. You actually popped the original seeds that were from
Yep,
Bodhi of the sunshine,
yep,
because that's kind
correct.
of in my mind that's one of the all time like desert island kind of strains. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Very special. Even still today, I go through so many seeds and it's still like it's brand new to me for how special it is. We're probably 10 years later now, just about.
Wow, man, it
It's
has
been a
been.
while. Yeah, I kept it to myself for a little while at first, and then it got out, so to speak. I traded it to a buddy, and I'm not sure what happened from there, but it spread like wildfire.
Yeah, dude.
And then it started winning cups, and it had a different name to it, Sunshine Four. And I was like, it's kind of interesting. Because no one at that time, no one even heard of Sunshine. They're renaming it left and right. No one wanted to sell a pack of Sunshine. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then a couple years went on. It kept on winning, and then eventually, Jake from Midnight Roots got to the bottom of the story. We have a bunch of mutual friends from downtown kind of techno scene, and a good friend of mine, Drew, was good friends with him, and they kind of were talking one day, and kind of got to the bottom of the story, and it was real cool for Jake to kind of put it out there and kind of set the record straight as far as the genetics go.
Yeah. He's a cool guy, man. He's been on
Oh,
the
he's great.
show
He's
before
so
too.
great and a great musician. It's all around very cool.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. And I seen on the post too, and I just want to kind of include this because I know Great Lakes Dank. I noticed you said that he was kind of saving that for you or whatever, and got it back to you. And I've been
Oh yeah, yeah,
following him as well too because of the sunshine. So yeah, shout out to him.
yeah. He's I've known him since I was born.
Awesome.
And
All
when I was younger, well, about 10 years ago at least, I gave it to him for safekeeping, and he's always kind of held the flame,
right,
kept it alive as I went through other stuff, other genetics. Back then, I only had you know 20, 30 plants, and you can only keep so much because I'm always seeds. I rarely ever do a clone unless it's for outside. For all my breeding is all strictly outside, so one time a season, all dedicated towards Michigan strains.
right.
Uh, phenotypes essentially for that do well in the Michigan environment.
No doubt. Yeah, that's cool.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
so yeah, dude, I was checking out. So the pellet fertilizer is I mean, to me, that's just pretty innovative, and I just was curious to know more about it. Really, is a lot of
Yeah,
it.
yeah. There's a lot to it. Well, essentially some of these amendments that I pick up from waste, like brewery grain. Some of them are isolated, not just a whole bunch of mixed, trash together. Although I don't really use that term because it's not waste, essentially. But anyways, some of these stuff that come in bulk, we'll dry them out, dehydrate them, mill it down into a powder, and then send it in for to Spectrum Labs or something for them to analyze it and get a reading back. And then at the same time, I was kind of going online. There's a million mixes out there for super soils and different recipes. I'd kind of deconstruct the compost out of them and see what kind of amendments were in them, and kind of replicate some of these mixes and sending them into the lab. Just kind of see where what kind of balance are, like why are we ordering kelp and stuff from halfway around the world when essentially we're throwing so much stuff away every day. And then the more you test, the more you see that there's a relation amongst a lot of these amendments. And to
Really?
backtrack, like 10 years ago,
Like, oh, like what do you mean by a relation between?
well, you could start to see, like, oh wow, this, avocado shells have 2% nitrogen, 2% potassium, not too far from what the kelp was testing at, as far as trying to find things to swap out
Gotcha.
without having all the shipping. Like, we don't have kelp around here, so all the shipping that has to be done from there to here, we should find stuff locally, make less of a carbon footprint, especially as organic gardeners. There needs to be a step up in the game as far as not producing plastic, you know, trying to connect to the earth through a plastic jug. It's kind of a
Exactly.
a little bit of something there. It doesn't feel right. And all my packaging so far is like a burlap sack, reusable, even as like a smart pot, so to speak, or you can always put some sort of shit in there. But anyways, about 10 years ago, I was really liking Botanicare had these pure pellets, pure bloom, pure veg. They're green and pink, and I just always back then thought it was so convenient, and they were cheap. And then that essentially went obsolete, for whatever reason, probably because they weren't making as much money off that stuff. But I always liked that idea. It's convenient, not a bunch of powders mixing together, breathing all that stuff in and whatnot. So then, when all these amendments and all the stuff starts making sense, I was, instead of making a super soil, I'll just put it into pellets, and then you can just kind of compost that in because it'd already be a specific blend. I'd match it to what my super soil previously was. Right now, it's 90% locally sourced with a little bit of rock dust, but I'm hoping within 2-3 months it'll be 100% for the flowering mix. But the veg and the no-till mix are 100% all from people's waste essentially.
You've done a few different mixes of the powders, and then you just kind of get them composted and mixed together in a pellet, and it's so there's
Well, it's like mix them into powders, and then we'll mix in like a cement mixer. I've already tested blends at the labs to make sure it's what I was previously using before when I was using kelp and guano and neem seed meal and all this other stuff. So on paper they look the same, but the ingredients essentially would be different.
gotcha.
Yep,
Yeah,
and then a pellet mill gets hot. Probably get up between 200 and 300 degrees, and some of the carbon and lignin in these pellets will turn into like a glue, so it's a natural adhesive, and
okay.
makes a nice little seal on it. And I also mix in biochar and different pieces of mushrooms and organic matter, compost itself, so there's no clumping. I'm sure you're familiar with when powders get wet too quick and the soil will clump together, make little hot spots. So this actually has carbon on the site as soon as it gets wet. It's not, it's like a little mini environment as opposed to 100% guano or something like that. So it's
Gotcha.
kind of taking it to the next level as well, or trying to explore new ways with it, but they're taking off. People are having great results. Like fantastic, better than me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. And that so those like dissolve. That's like a slow release kind of thing, is what.
Yep, it's kind of cool. So I gave an initial dose because essentially I took like how much super soy would, let's say, be in this, how many pounds would be per 100 cubic feet or whatnot, and minimize it down per pot. And then I gave people, okay, 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds in a 10, 15 gallon pot. And people were doubling it, of course, slamming it, but not burning them and having great results. Like
So
I
the
saw
idea,
that. What's
like
that?
like the no-till mix, like the idea would be I can buy a bale of peat, and then I can use whatever aeration, and I can just mix in those pellets as all my super soil amendments, or quote unquote like a super
Yep.
soil amendment.
Yep. It's already pre-mixed essentially. And I'll put into a pellet. So for flour, a veg. The veg doesn't have much potassium or phosphorus in it, but a lot of minerals and nitrogen. The no-till is more like a 2-2-2, and then the bloom, it's off the charts right now. I could tone it down a bit. It seems like there's 2-3 grows worth of phosphorus in those babies right now, but they're working well. They're working real well. I'm excited to explore them even more.
Cool. I just want to say one thing. If
Sure.
Eagle, if you're listening, the chat is not up on YouTube, and it looks like you have to fire that up as the administrator. So it won't let me fire it up. So sorry, everybody listening. Chat's not up. I do realize that. But, so how long do them pellets like? I mean, if you got a bloom formula as well as a veg, like how long are you looking at these kind of breaking apart and being used in the soil.
Wait, can you say that again?
Like the pellets, I mean, how long are they really taking to kind of break apart and be used by the plant?
Well, it seems like I mean, within a couple of days, as soon as they get wet, some stuff is already available for sure. You know, because everything's all essentially milled down into a powder. So once it breaks open, it everything's already pretty fine, broken down. But as far as the initial reaction, there hasn't been any burn yet.
Okay.
You know, at least you can pound them. At least I'm sure someone can test that theory to the max.
Oh, well,
But there's some instant reactions. Like right now, like ideally, you make a super soil, you cook it for 30, 60 days. You know, at least get them kind of worked in there. With I've had my whole last round without any super soil, just all pellets on the bottom upon transplant. 10 days of another veg in that pot, and had a great run. So there's no super soil, no pre-composting it in there. Not that I'd recommend it, but it's all, you know, if you're in a pinch or you don't have time, it's also a valid option to do. Of course, you know, pre-cooking it in your pot for 20 days would obviously just make it that much better. But they still work, you know, as far as to answer your question, they can work right away. You know, 4 or 5 days on the veg pellets, put a little cup right around the stem, kind of work it in a little bit, and you can start seeing some greening results, you know, that week.
yeah,
It's
no,
pretty
that's
cool.
awesome, man. Because that's one question I was always wondering. Like, that's a hurdle for a lot of guys that are trying to run that super soil style, or even new people mixing up a soil. It's like, okay, we pull these lists of ingredients, and I mean, some of them can be 4 to 28 different ingredients, and
Yeah,
sometimes it's kind of,
exactly.
oh. So I think it's really cool. Like the concept of what you got going on, Josh, is
Thanks.
kind
I
of
really appreciate the interest. And I'm
awesome.
hoping to keep it growing. But yeah, essentially, it's everything already pre-mixed. Even if you wanted to make the soil without having to get the powders, you can just dump, you know, 30 pounds in a 100 cubic feet or whatnot, and just cook it already. It's already pre-balanced. You know, just to even eliminate that step of all the powders and all that inhaling and whatnot. And I forgot to mention that it's all cruelty-free, no animal parts, no slaughter, no slaughterhouses, no fishery. You know, not that I'm get. I sometimes find some wild bones in my yard. I'll put them in there, but it doesn't support any cruel systems like that. So it's all trying to be on a better path for that in that manner. So it's all essentially vegetables and grains and stuff. That's all, and nuts and seeds what's in all the mixes.
So where you said you're sourcing it locally in grains, obviously like breweries and stuff, but what other kind of sources are you getting for
Well,
material?
there's a few nut factories in Detroit. There's
Okay.
like coffee roasters.
Yeah.
Lots of Mexican restaurants. Like I said, there's some place you have to really do some digging. You know, essentially talking to people. There's a McClure's factory was one of our first ones. They have specific ways. You can see how do you manipulate it. Brewery's obviously an easy one because it's all grain. There's not a bunch of food mixed in with it. Some breakfast restaurants I've had. I'll take all their waste in one, but they'll separate the egg shells in another. You know, for calcium carbonate and whatnot. So takes a little bit of talking to the manager. It's not easy. Like people want to recycle. People want to stop producing more waste. You just have to give them an easy way to say yes. Like, let me look at see what you're doing. I'll make a plan for you. All you have to do is say okay. Like I said, it's a nonprofit at the end of the day. So after the workers are paid, it goes back into Michigan's environment. So kind of using the waste to actually improve the environment, like a double whammy.
Oh yeah, that's cool. So is there a specific like thing you're supporting with that then? Like,
Well, not one specific. I have
okay.
my own goals within the nonprofit to accomplish myself with buying land and doing some preservation and kind of make stricter rules around our coastlines and stuff. But like last year, there's a city called Pontiac that's down this way in Oakland County, and they have some low income neighborhoods that don't get enough attention, tax money and stuff from the city. And I have a friend who runs it's called Reroute Pontiac. It's another nonprofit, and they lots of green infrastructure for the city. And we donated our money last year towards their causes because they already had a whole plan set up and something to execute that would directly impact the lives around the area.
Oh, that's
That was
cool.
last spring soil sales went towards that. And this year I haven't decided, but I'm hoping for a big spring.
Okay. No, I was just kind of asking just to bring a highlight to it. You know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah,
sure
yeah, totally.
it was. So no,
Yeah.
that's that. So like, is this a formula that you've been? Because I know you've been a grower for a while and a caregiver
Yeah,
or whatever.
since
But
about 2006.
okay,
Yeah.
so you've been kind of running this in your own and developing.
Well, yeah, like I was talking to you just before the show. I used to send, I was on the hunt on the internet on IC Mag every day. What's the perfect recipe? What's the perfect
Yep.
math? What's the perfect equation? Keep on sending stuff in. And I was consulting back then, so it's kind of, you show someone a piece of paper. It was kind of like you're selling them an idea. If you do this, you're able to get those results. But there wasn't too much. If an accident happened, you didn't know how to kind of come in and repair it exactly. And I was kind of chasing this dream around for quite some time, and then switched over to more of a microbiome, increase the microbes, and they kind of do most of that work for you instead of having to have that specific recipe, so on and so forth. So I was all about the recipes up until about 2016, 17, and then I realized after you're done, there's always a whole bunch of shit in the soil still. It's not like there's anything that's reading zeros afterwards, like you just hit something on the head. So there's just a different way to tackle it. And I thought, instead of over nutriating a small pot, go a little bit bigger pot, a little smaller plant, less nutrients, it can expand itself a little bit better. And that's where I'm at with it now. But kind of went through a few different waves.
Yeah, no, I like it. Like you mentioned the microbiome, and I guess those pellets would be kind of like a biostimulant for that, or is there
Yeah,
kind of
well, they
some?
do. There's a microbiometer. It's like a little, it's a, what's a good way to put it? It's like a field test that you can read off your phone.
Okay.
It tests how much how much microlife is in the soil, essentially. Like if you test sand versus a healthy compost, there's a rating that's 0 to 900, I believe it is. Jeff Lowenfels is also on the team that helps him with the knowledge and working behind that. But being able to use that was, I was able to test the pellets before, or test the soil before using the pellets, and then adding the pellets in there and test it, every other day. And you can see an increase in the microlife right upon watering. So, to answer your question, it does increase it right away. It gets right to work, gets right to life. You can see the bacteria count goes right up, starting to break it instantly down. Yeah, if you since there is compost in those pellets, compost it in. If you put it in a sealed bag, I mean, overnight, it's white and fuzzy. Yeah, even though they're dry to the touch, like glass, they feel like they still need to breathe because they're ready to bump.
So that kind of brings an interesting thought to this too. You said there's compost already in there, so like a lot of times when we're mixing our own soil, say it's a coot mix or even the super soils, one of the big variables that I've come across to learn is that you don't really know what your nutrition was in your compost, so to speak. You know what I'm
Well,
saying? Like
yeah. So
that's
I'm
always
glad you brought that up.
but in
Next,
this sense, you've got it already tested as part of the package, and that's kind of interesting.
well, it's kind of you touched on a cool subject. Next month, I'm hoping to fully release my compost business, where it'll be, bags for everybody by the cubic foot. Got a really really big production underway. I'm real excited about.
Okay.
It goes hand in hand with my pellets. And the idea behind it is they're both made out of the same ingredients. Essentially, the compost is several different stages of the pellets ingredients already broken down for like that same microlife to interact. It's nothing foreign, like you're using cow dung, then you're introducing guano and neem seed. That none of those microbes essentially aren't bonded essentially with that compost yet. So this compost is like aged for about 3 years. It's aged hot compost and then ran through several different worm processes, two different types, the reds and then the earthworms, for a nice finished, well-rounded product. And as it's aging all this time, I'm still taking the ingredients from the pellets and feeding the worms, feeding the compost to really, really charge it up, as opposed to not having. You said compost makes such a difference. If you can have a low nutrient peat worm castings, that's not going to do that much, or a super nutrient dense, super aged, super fungal, a third of my mix is all mushroom substrates, and that biometer also tells you your fungal rating, the fungal bacteria,
Oh,
and
really?
all the fungal soils. All last summer, I was testing my outdoors, and they're all through the roof. The ones that were highest in fungal activity. So another great addition, and that's big thanks to Terrestrial Fungi. If you ever follow him online, he's a grand wizard on mushrooms. But he's taught me a whole bunch starting in like 2017. I was able to escalate my understanding of the fungus role, in compost and in your soil, as opposed to being a victim of numbers on a sheet and not really relying on your microbes like I used to.
Actually, that's kind of a great topic. I mean, to kind of cover like what I mean, everybody's kind of the buzz has been fungal to bacteria ratio, right? And that's in the organic side, there's a lot of talk about that. So, like, how would us as growers be able to more fungal growth? What would be the benefits we would want us to think to see?
Hold on a second, you're breaking up for a minute. Can you hear me though?
No, I was just wondering, like, what thoughts would you have towards how we could improve fungal dominance and actually in our soils and actually encourage that kind of, and what benefits might come from that for the plant?
Well, like as soil ages, the bacteria's it gets more fungally dominant as it ages, and a lot of bacteria waste and stuff condenses, and instead of being simple pieces of carbon in the soil, there's these huge complex chains like humic acids and such. And it takes fungus. Only fungus has the enzymes to break some of that stuff down to get some extra nutrients out of the soil, where bacteria isn't equipped necessarily for that. So having a super aged soil and having more fungal dominance will bring more nutrient availability to the table.
Okay.
Like a fresh compost is very high in bacteria because it's still breaking down. When it's a good fungal one, it's like 70 to 30. It's like last summer what I was experiencing, had all my best flawless stuff for having that nice fungal dominance. And in time, it just seems, keeps getting better and better. I keep learning more and more.
So is there a certain stage in the composting where the fungal really grabs hold? You keep mentioning it at age, and I'm trying to lay up the question because I know after there's a thermophilic, which where most of us are used to for compost, they run it through the hot heat cycles like that, and the biology does its work, and the biology is what's heating that up, but that's not exactly fungal biology. Is that kind of what
Yeah, that's bacteria right away.
okay.
All that hot composting. So like right away when I get, let's say, a bunch of food waste, like the first 6 months, hot compost, high bacteria, kind of get that water out, break it down initially. And then I actually like to cold compost. I actually don't even like to turn it. Once it's nice and turned, like for the first 6 months, I'll just let it sit. And then the fungal ratings start to go through the roof. The more you turn it, it'll start kicking back up the bacteria, which isn't bad. It'll start, gassing off or using more nutrients. But the slow roll fungal dominant compost for me seems to be the best. Then after about a year and a half, 2 years, redworms will finish all the rest of the raw waste. They like that, I don't like redworm castings essentially just from them because it seems like it still kind of smells and it's not at all done. But then it goes through the earthworms after that, and then it's a beautiful thing. But still fungally dominant, not rushed. When someone gets a hot, steamy pile of compost and they're like, coming in hot, I'm like, oh,
No
yeah,
doubt.
no shit. Hopefully, it's a little bit of a misconception, but just aged compost, and it's hard to find. It's hard to find good compost, to be honest, especially for outdoor stuff in bulk. Well, again, I expanded my operation. I have outdoor and indoor, so I'm hoping this year, has a good push. It all goes towards a good cause. The outdoor stuff is just worms and hot compost. It's still aged for a few years, but the indoor stuff has the last stage of worms. So, yep.
That's cool, man. So if you're looking to kick that off, you've already been running some of these for a few
Oh,
years.
it's been years. It's been years. So many years trying to put it together and failing and failing and failing. But when you got your eye on a prize, it's not they're hurdles, not roadblocks.
No doubt, man. That's tough because, like you say, you keep running into hurdles, and it is a really it's a really great thing that you're doing, and that's kind of what
Thanks. Yeah, one of the hurdles being like you never understand how much waste means to companies until you start breaking contracts, and then their lawyers want to talk to you. The trash game in Michigan's a big thing that you don't want to touch that money. So you get some resistance to say the least.
Oh, really? Like you're like they're not going to need the trash can as much because you're
Well,
taking.
it's like most businesses are in contracts with the trash company, and the trash company wants that money. So when you're not filling up that bin and they're not making as much, they want to know why. So I had to go to court once, and but all their definitions are for waste. And since I'm making a product out of it, it's no longer waste. So it's kind of backdoored out of that situation, but still kind of funny when you think fuck with people's trash, you get in trouble for doing a good thing. But
I see.
it's interesting. But that's just that's one of the hurdles.
No, and it is. It just speaks to our society, right? That's just their little
Yeah,
niche.
exactly.
We collect these bins and we go put it here. Like now my bin's not full. That's a bad thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I mean, ideally, we don't want shit in the landfill, and that's the end goal. Is
Yeah, no, totally. Michigan has way too many. Who didn't love, like I was growing up north, who didn't love growing up north when they were a kid? Now to see landfills and, all that expanding needs to come to an end. And if the powers at hand aren't going to stop it, then we need to stop making the trash and take it out from underneath them.
no doubt, man. Now, like I seen on your page too, you were grinding up like old stalks and stems from say past harvest or
Yep.
trimming jobs or whatever. What is that getting incorporated into the pellets, or is there something that we can do with our own, like as our own
Well,
individual growers?
well, what I did notice is that I don't know if you remember, I kind of took it in my hand and made like it was like squishy. It's almost like it was like a lint from a dryer with a little bit of like shaved wood chips in there. It makes a clone. You can clone inside of it for one, but I'm working on making a base soil that doesn't use peat or cocoa, and I'm trying to incorporate it into that with a good texture. But
Okay.
it's working great as a media so far. And then Kaya from Pacific Northwest Roots suggested taking all the different parts of the plant and trying to make a pellet out of that and seeing how the plants might interact with, something just make from the seeds. Like I was thinking 70% seed, 15% stalk, 15% leaf, maybe make some blends to get just, I don't know, fuck
Oh
around.
shit, man! Hell yeah!
Find
Shout out to
something
Kaya,
cool.
dude. That's badass.
Yeah, totally.
He's been on the show too, man. That's cool.
Yeah. I watched that episode as well.
Did
Yeah,
you? All right.
he's a cool
All right.
guy.
That's dope, man. No, and I was just looking like I know you were kind of saying how you were studying ingredients, and I know like a lot of the people listening, we're kind of all on a similar mission, right? Like we want to grow high quality cannabis, and that's kind of the goal. And then after that, we kind of want to reduce our costs. You know what I mean? And if we can recycle and regenerate some of that
Yeah.
stuff back,
Again, just like you said, it's a good point. It shouldn't just stop at trying to produce the bud. It should be more, especially of an organic grower. You're doing it organic because you're making this relationship that the natural way is the best. So like leaving Mylar packs or hash containers in your wake, like there's some growing that needs to be taken. We need to step the game up a little bit. Even the organic growers, even if no one else sees the light yet, but once you're aware, it's hard not to be. Then you're ignorant at that point.
yeah, no doubt. Are there easy suggestions you would have for somebody like a lot of people maybe got a couple tents and they're growing their 12 plants. Is there easy ways they can kind of start composting or doing some of the things on their own?
Um, I mean, recycling your stuff, obviously, leaving the store with plastic in your hand, I think is a first one.
I think the biggest fear though, like
Plastic, learning to recycle.
trying to do it is like, how do I know what I'm putting on? Like if I do something with my leaves, say I do a pruning on the, I got all these leaves, what am I actually adding if I make that into some kind of a ferment or something, composted or whatever? That's kind of where I think a lot of people get lost on that. Like
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's I have a couple acres, so it's easy for me to say go throw it in your compost pile when maybe not everyone has that at their house. But what I'm offering within my business as well is fully recycling. Let's say if someone wants a whole, warehouse full of, uh, 25-gallon pots of soil, they don't want to risk reusing it and not having the same results. So it'll be like a loan or a contract where I'll come pick up the old stuff and anything else they want to recycle, and I'll do the recycling for it, and I'll give them fresh stuff if
Oh,
someone can't do it on their own. That's a big thing. I'm trying to, a lot of big warehouse grows say it's inconvenient or they can't do it. So I'm trying to really push that button, be like, well, I'll do it for you if that means you'll start growing organic bud. Instead of putting it on them and them taking the easy way out, there are options. So I'm trying to carve out as many as possible to where it's an easy path for people and not so much of a struggle.
no, it's an interesting niche too, because I know like a lot of the commercial stuff, they have to document how they disposed of some of that waste too. Like they can't just throw seeds and leaves and
Right.
stems into the trash or whatever.
Yeah, no, totally. No, I think it'd be a good fit if people would want to. People love the bud, but when you start throwing in a different way of growing, getting out of that comfort spot, people don't messes with their money and stuff. It's a hard bridge to gap, but it makes these pellets are so simple. I mean, as long as like I said, in a month when I have my compost, which is what I would recommend, as opposed to something else. But essentially, just throw a couple handfuls of pellets on the bottom, plant your plant, and just water.
Okay.
It's pretty simple for a lot of people that are worried about bridging that gap and not knowing what to do, confused about a bunch of KNF recipes, or you can tinker with that stuff. As the guy who runs my website says, when people often ask that question, he's like, until you're getting at least an ounce a gallon just watering, don't even start tinkering with microbes or some sort of addition.
Okay.
Just properly watering your plant will get you well over an ounce per gallon, and then start tinkering, as opposed to all these different concoctions when you're not even at a solid place yet.
I
Like
love that because that's something that I've been hitting on really serious for myself. Actually, is like I think as you get years under your belt, you kind of take for granted how important watering is. You know,
It's
and then the more experience you get, the more you realize it just comes right back to that detail and getting
everything. Like I
detail.
said, I've consulted a lot of places, and I've said every single person's issue is either over or under watering, and it's like 50% of the yield. I got this fellow in Clarkston. He's 75. He's half blind. He can barely see. And he's not that much of a gardener. It took him a couple years to get, but just watering, he's at 22 ounces in a 10-gallon pot, and he can't see. He just does it by feel,
Okay.
and he's crushing it. I haven't even got that, even with some sort of microbe addition. So
That's
just
bad.
getting, until you're there with just water, uh, you know, wasting money or time on the other stuff, you really need to focus on the main essential of the watering of the plant, which I'm a big fan of bottom watering myself. Have a nice mulch layer on top, and if you're in a saucer, I keep like maybe a quarter to an eighth of an inch just nonstop in the bottom of the tray, and then the roots be growing over the tray, outside of it, rarely ever from the top, just little, almost like a little dripper every day, just in the tray. That's it's heavy, but it never gets dry. Even if your pot dries a third of the way, and that's a third of the plant that's not being supported as it previously was. So once that root system gets filled, there's no, oh, wait till they're light. I like to tease them a little bit. No. I always, having that little bit in the bottom will never overwater it. If it doesn't dry up in a day, then it's content for a little bit type thing. But watering is everything. In my opinion, I don't even add any additions. Sometimes a sprouted CT, but I'm a big fan of watering, just having the right compost and the right system in place for water to do its thing.
No doubt, man. That's it's like so many of the real experienced guys in the organics are. I mean, that's exactly what it comes back to, and it's so funny that it's always that.
Like I said, every single person I've ever seen grow up, going through their first grows, it's always over or under watering every single time.
Yeah.
And then I said, you kind of get that stamped in your head when you're trying to problem solve for people. Like, we'll start with this, and normally it just always corrects itself every time.
Yeah, no, I just chuckle, man, because honestly, I've been learning this lesson myself here recently, so it's
Yeah,
kind of
no, I constantly, it's never ending. Once I get comfortable with it, I take advantage of it, and then I'm right back where I started from.
yeah.
But no, it's good.
Is there a particular media like so if somebody's buying a soil and they're intending on running the pellets, is there a media that you suggest to start with?
Just for testing purposes, I did it with Ocean Forest just because it's widely available, and I've tested it a million times over the years. But just essentially, Ocean Forest has a high CEC of like 50, so it has the ability to take in a lot of the pellets. Still add maybe a cup per pound in a 10-gallon pot, maybe like 2.5, 3 pounds of pellets,
Okay.
2 cups of compost, and you can fill the whole thing up with ocean. It'll rock out even for more than one round.
So you're putting the pellets in the bottom, you said, right?
Yep. Yep. Kind of like a super soil. Like you don't want to mix them globally. That could be a way to burn it. I put it at the bottom like you would, like you would a super soil. I put a little bit of soil down there, mix them in the bottom. Then the rest of the pot is for like breathing space,
Okay.
not too hot. And
I was,
then if you want about second week of flower, you're familiar with like spikes, like from the Rev, that TLO book,
yep.
making little nutrient spikes around the pot, kind of making little tunnels as opposed to, you know, globally mixing them.
Okay.
That's just for the flower. The veg and the no-till are you can pretty liberally put them down. They're not going to burn anything because they have much lower concentration. Like I said, them flower ones right now are hot, to say the least.
Yeah. No, it was
People having great results.
different too with the flower. Like the other ones you're putting in the bottom and then trying to deliver the flowering ones is you're not transplanting second week in flower, right? Like
Right. Yeah, no, exactly.
no,
But everything's working out well. I just on my story today, I have one of my strains from my breeding, this OGKB Sunshine Black Fauna that I made. It's coming out pink and red. And that was their first time ever using the pellets. And in that grow that I put them, it's on my story right now. It was their first time ever using them, and they absolutely crushed it. No guidance or nothing. They just gave it to them and the strains, and they just killed it. No questions asked. I'm sure if things were going bad, they would have asked a question, but it just nonstop the entire time.
that's
Like
all.
sweet, just water only.
It makes you feel good, man. Like it
It
does.
does.
I don't know. It's a cool experience.
It really is, and it's cool that I understand it because I spend so much time working on it. But it's cool for someone that is unfamiliar with it to build such a good relationship right away and have good results. And now he just asked me for like a couple hundred plants worth of pellets. I'm like,
Oh,
and he was using something different in the past, but you can't deny the results, especially when it's that easy.
hell yeah, man. That's awesome, dude.
Yep, and they're all pH buffed and stuff, so they're not going to drive your pH down or nothing like that, like cal carb. I try to stay away from the sulfates, the salts and stuff, but they're on hand if you need them, obviously. But I don't really put them in the pellets, like the gypsum or the Epsom salt, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think heavy metals. A lot of people are concerned with and recycling stuff. Like when you do your testing, they're looking for that as well, right? Like,
Oh yeah, totally. Arsenic's a big one, and sometimes you'll come across some amendments from stores, and they're full of it, like azomite and stuff. It's pretty surprising that you'd never think. So that's how I kind of use the testing lab now. I'll send stuff in for toxicity stuff. If I'm picking up a new client, let's say for a lot of brewery grain that I want to use, excuse me, in my pellets,
yep.
I'll send it in to see, where they sourcing their stuff from. Is there some metals lingering in there where once it gets condensed, there's going to be some sort of negative effects in the soil. So that's how I use a lab nowadays. And for before and after, I'll like test a soil before using it and after, see what the difference is, see how much the pellets have provided.
Okay. Out of curiosity, are there any ones that really caught your eye as far as being pretty bad or contaminated, right? Like,
Nope. Nope.
no.
Surprisingly not. Everything. I'm just so surprised when I'm looking at all these results. Everything has so much stuff in it all the time. The real surprise is that, again, we're shipping oyster shell in from across the country when we're throwing away eggshells here every day. It's like you just threw this away and you went and bought it from the store.
I love
You start to connect those dots. you start looking at the world a little bit differently. Pretty fun.
I'm guilty of it too, man.
Oh,
Like,
no, we all are. We all are every day.
yeah, like
It's a victim of the world we live in, and we're conditioned to be that way. Got to break those barriers down now.
yeah, just recently, like this last soil mix was when I was really kind of trying to think differently about, okay, am I going to order oyster shell or can I just go to my local farm and fleet and buy oyster shell that's already there for chickens? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's the same shit, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot, and it's probably cheaper too than going to your little local hydro store. No, there's stuff all around us to use, and really, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. This is just hopefully just scratching the surface. It seems like there's so much more to get into when you start looking at the world different. When you start looking at stuff like that, getting into hospitals. We've been in like school systems, like in Oakland County, got them to use all paper trays. So then all the cafeteria lunches are on paper trays, and we take the trays afterwards, and it's great carbon for the compost, as opposed to that school has a lot more less waste. It makes an impact to the kids too. I think when you're that young of an age, it makes a difference as opposed to trying to play catch up when you're older, and you're stuck in your ways more or whatnot.
No doubt.
Yeah. Tapping into new systems. I've said restaurants right now and breweries is convenient 'cause it's food waste, but there's other companies out there that produce stuff that have waste, to tackle.
Yeah.
So until there's no more, there's always going to be a way to recycle it. So.
Right. And then hopefully there's always people like you that are trying to figure out ways to do that too.
Yeah, thanks. I'm hoping this inspires more people. I mean, essentially, it'd be cool. Like if I had this same business down in Florida, I can maybe have a different set of amendments to make the soil with, but still get the same result just based on what part of the country do you live in or the world. What's the typical diet in this area? What's the common waste? It'd be kind of cool for people to unite and have all these different blends, from local where they live, as opposed to one common idea that's shipped all around the country.
Monopoly.
It'd clean up the environment as well. That'd be pretty badass.
Well, I was just gonna say nobody can monopolize that either. Right?
No, exactly. No, yeah, power to the people on that.
Yep, no doubt, man. So you mentioned eggshells. So I got some eggshells. What kind of, if I was mixing up some soil, I mean, is that kind of like a direct replacement for oyster shell right in there? So if I was doing 10 pounds of oyster shell, I can do 10 pounds.
I mean, they're within like a couple percentages of each other, and it probably is depending on the oyster shell you get or the eggs.
Okay.
I just got some results back. I'll post them online after this of the calcium between the eggshells and the oyster. So I don't have them on me, but I will post it after this or send it to you so you can check them out. But yeah, direct replacement. And it also, buffers the pH. It's really hard to not have good pH if you have a lot of eggshells in there. And there's a lot of extra minerals that people don't really think about.
Minerals like the micros and.
Yep, exactly. So if you're, let's say I'm replacing kelp with avocado for the potassium, but doesn't really have all the minerals in there. That could be maybe a supplement for some of that. You kind of rebuild it a different way. But yeah, exactly. I dehydrate mine and mill them for the eggshells, get them to a fine powder.
So you're sorting all this stuff and doing these at different times too. That's that's a lot of work.
Yep, it is. No, I have a great team of guys. I have a great group of people that believe in the mission, and they're out there every day, either picking something up, dropping something off, making pellets, grinding shit down. It's great. It's great work. Every single thing is a direct impact to our environment. Every single purchase made, even though the money goes towards the environment, the purchase itself is direct waste that would have been sitting in the landfill for who knows how long. So it's cool.
Oh, just sitting there turning into methane gas. Right?
Yeah, no, exactly. So every purchase has direct impact to Michigan's environment. In several facets, which is a real cool feeling. And puts a lot of steam in the engine. To keep it going.
Yeah,
We're growing better buds out of people's trash. While people are in the store buying trash actually to grow their plants with. I'll growing out your trash can better than you will going to spend $200 at the store.
Yeah, no doubt. Like it's true, man. I mean, that's kind of the eye-opening piece about it. Like I
Yeah.
kind of started thinking that similar too, even to the point where like, I mulch with straw and shout out to like Scott and Sarah Skames from Impressive. Like they talk a lot about that, like just recycle your stems back instead of using straw. The stems
Yeah.
kind of,
There you go.
what I mean? They work similar. So like
Yeah.
use,
No, exactly. Yep. Exactly. That's the mindset to have.
yeah, no doubt, man.
Yep. Reuse, reuse, reuse.
Yeah. So you mentioned a website. Is that different? Is there a different place to get?
Yeah, it's yeah, because the sales go through the nonprofits. Happycoast.org. happycoast.org. We just got it back up and running, so it's a little bit it's has everything for sale on there and whatnot. But I'm gonna style it out here shortly. But you know, accomplishes the goal. Things are available for sale. It kind of gives a heads up on when compost will be available in the spring, how to place pellet orders.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that compost is interesting, man. That's always
Yeah, it's been so many years of me working on this. Like I said, even to have one batch done is what already waiting several years, let alone developing the idea of getting it to that point of where you have a product that you can use.
right.
It's been a long way. It's been a long way coming, but the compost is huge. And last summer, I grew a plant just on my compost, zero amendments. Like I had some pots, a whole bunch of outdoor pots. I put like 30 pounds of fertilizer pellets in there, and grow nice plants, several 4 or 5 pounds on them. And out of my compost plant that just grew out of one of my piles that was unturned, zero amendment, zero anything. The biggest, baddest one of them all, zero amendments, because just the compost is
Yeah, I was in it.
the backbone of the whole thing, and the pellets are there for backup.
No, that's eye opening, man. It's, like I, that's the other thing I always kind of see or I've run into myself is like, well, how much are we trying to feed these things? And it does feed
Oh,
the,
I mean, it's pretty much toxic. How much we're shoving down there. That's a toxic hot zone of a lot of stuff. It's really not necessary if you have proper biome. And really, it comes down for me as root space. When something has unlimited root space, you don't run into all these confines where you're trying to, jump through hoops on how much calcium levels or this or that. When really unlimited root space and good compost, there's unlimited everything for infinity. It's like that compost pile is probably on 2,000 gallons of soil, so it had the root space to find out what it needed to within its space, as opposed to a 200-gallon pot. Just the confinement seems to be the issue, and the toxicity of 30 pounds of shit down there, just to back it up. Not to say one way's right or one way's wrong, but if you're worried about money, you can just use compost and not 30 pounds of fertilizer per plant. It's a good start right there.
no doubt. And
Saves
I think
cost.
we always underestimate how much nutrient is actually in the organic matter. Like as that
Oh, totally.
starts
No,
to,
like I said, several years of adding biochar and loading up that biochar and keep on feeding that compost where it is nutrient dense. But passively, there's a lot of nutrients in it, but it's not ready to kill a plant, so to speak, if you're to plant directly in it.
well, it's not a chemical nutrient, right? It's tied up in biology.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's why I said the word passively. It's bonded to stuff to where you could plant something in there. It'll be gentle, but has long-term shelf life for whatever you need.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but
So
that's the way to go for me, is having that real nice compost, and not all compost is the same.
yeah, just
Definitely. I remember
curious,
you said
man,
that earlier.
like what kind of area are you talking on the operation here? Because I'm just picturing you saving a bunch of stuff and sorting it all out. Like it's got
Oh,
to be fairly.
yeah, no, it can be pretty big. There's several different spots. Before COVID, we were probably at like 120 restaurants and schools and stuff like that, and everything got shut down. It's a lot of work. So you have to turn that stuff quick. Those first couple of weeks can start smelling if you don't take care of that stuff. But yeah, we process it though. Like in the wintertime right now, we dehydrate everything, mill it down quick into a powder. It's not really like too much stuff sitting around. But I have a few acres of land, and like I said, we have this new facility downtown. It's 4+ acres and 50,000 square feet. So we're stepping the game up.
That's all going to be for the pellets and the compost.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yep. There's a property next door I'm trying to acquire so I can get one of them to the rec facility and then compost at the place next door. But either way, stepping it up nonetheless. But I do all the compost at my house right now. Several piles, turned, unturned.
Right.
Whatnot.
Yeah. Well, it's got to start somewhere, man. You can't just.
Oh yeah, totally. Like I said, I was downtown before and got kicked out of the city because that waste management stuff. So had to go undercover for a minute at my house before I could get my ducks in a row to reattack.
Okay. That's funny, man. That it led to that too. Like they were just that.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Like
it just makes me want to dig down deeper too. To change the ways. It's so old world thinking to favor a trash company over a recycling company or anything of the matter. They're not even doing it as a city. Your citizens are trying to do it for you, and you're still saying no. What the hell is the matter with you?
It's like, yeah, you're probably in the Idiocracy movie, right?
No, that's exactly what it feels like. You're like, ay, every time.
No, that's cool, man. Dig it. Somebody in Eagle is asking where again, and I'm gonna repeat it. happycoast.org is where to buy it. So
Yep.
I tried typing it in there. I didn't get the WWs on it though, so I don't.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. So did you grow up in Detroit then? Is that?
Oh, yep. I was born in Dearborn.
Okay.
Grew up downriver, just like 10 minutes south of Detroit.
Right on. Man.
Yep. And now I live northern Oakland County, about a half hour north of the city.
Okay.
Yep. Just been around here my whole life.
That's what's up, man. Trying to keep it local. Right?
Yeah, and kind of what kind of started some of this, for me was my mom had cancer, mid 2000s brain cancer, and she wanted to do the Simpson oil, and the need for organic material in the mid 2000s was kind of obsolete around here. At least amongst my friends, it wasn't much of a movement. Even the organic food world still wasn't doing the big push like it has now. But my mom's cancer free now and all that. So the Simpson oil was like a huge turnaround of the need for organic medicine, and that was kind of a driving force. And that was actually because all the pollution surrounding the city, which is kind of one of the driving forces for the environmental nonprofit to clean up what the city's being ignorant to, and trying to affect people's lives in a better way. So to go through that experience with my mom and her cancer growing up. Kind of like tattooed that in my brain of these effects of poor management on some of these facilities and our nature and the air we breathe and the quality of our water. And if this city's not going to make a difference, then use their neglect against them and take that trash and build up the finances to do it yourself. So that's kind of growing up in the city kind of influenced that as well.
Yeah, man. No, that's pretty awesome. I mean, really, it's just because a lot of us, like me, I'm guilty of this myself. I'll sit around and talk about it, but yeah, I'm not all.
Oh yeah, I mean, we all, it's life's hard. We have so much stuff that we have to do, and it's just not easy. But yeah, it's nice to awareness is the first step. And then the more you talk about it, the more easier it becomes.
Right. And that's kind of what I've started to like. Taking my stems and my trimming leaves, and actually I just did a 6-foot circle out in the backyard of the not chicken wire fence, but kind of just a little metal fencing kind of thing.
Sure.
And then I've just been throwing it in there, and it's pretty much full. I haven't turned it or nothing. I've just been kind of adding on to it every time, and I go out in the spring and turn it. But that was kind of my little attempt at trying to.
Hey, no, that's the spark. Like I said, those first couple steps, and everything else becomes easier. Just getting over the hump. Essentially, it's not necessarily like it's something that was programmed into us. It's not like it was a choice growing up. Like, oh, I want to be this wasteful person. We're not taught the severity of that growing up. So then we're forced to make a change as an adult, as opposed to having the awareness as a child. So it's nice, it's our generation's responsibility to break that change, and kids can grow up in that different environment where it's not going to be as tough.
Yeah, hopefully, man. I don't know. But I agree with you. It's not something that we were raised to naturally want to, you know what I mean? We just
Right.
get used to throwing things in the trash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, things just don't throw away. They go somewhere.
Yeah.
Our mind kind of shuts off when we shut that can door. You throw it away, and your mind stops thinking about it at that point. But really, there's a whole journey that goes on after that. It's not, just one step. Every generation will keep getting better.
Yep. No doubt, man. And um, I just had a question too in the top of my head, but so have you tried running pellets with like a just a straight cocoa kind of a mix?
I have. Yep. I just finished a crop.
Okay.
Like in my last flower, I'd had a couple different samples set up with super soil, some with not. And lucky enough, I had a friend give me some plants that were in like 2.5 gallon cocoa pots that were already pretty decent sized. And I just took them to Pound Town with the pellets. And
Yeah.
yep, almost got an ounce per gallon. But so it was like first time attempt. I didn't add any compost either, so I was thinking maybe mixing compost in with it next time could get a little bit better result. But it was all cocoa and just kept on top dressing like every 10 days.
Okay.
Yeah, it had its color. It wasn't the biggest plant, but it wasn't deprived and yellow or anything. It was still fully lush. So that was cool.
That is,
Definitely something to play with more on this next batch.
yeah, it'd be interesting because I know a lot of people really are fond of using the cocoa as a media and
Yeah, no, actually, it's funny you said that. I had someone ask me today about it, if how well they work with the cocoa. So I'm thinking like I have a few different ways of tackling it. Cause yeah, people like the way the moisture and they're attached to that style of watering, and that works for them. So that's fine. Everyone has their own stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I'm trying to get it where it's over ounce per gallon. So maybe I have to add more pellets or spike them in, or maybe mix a little bit more compost and spike them in, to where you're not really messing up the media, but just a couple few spikes can, I don't know, maybe go a long way with a little bit of compost in there, or the right compost rather.
so when you say an ounce per gallon, you're talking like a 7 gallon pot you'd get 7 ounces from. Is
Right.
that
Yeah.
that's an
That's right.
interesting metric that you're using there because a lot of times it's grams per watt or it's ounces per light or something, but you're referring to it in terms of root space.
Yeah, like how much you're pulling out of that pot. Because for me, it's root space is organic gardening. To me, that's what it is. It's not necessarily the light per watt bit. It's how big a gallon pots that you're in. If I try to have three under a light, like 3 10-gallon pots, get them 12 ounces a piece. Just over ounce per gallon, or over 2.5 pounds of light. Without CO2. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I kind of judge it. How someone uses their soil. How much is in that baby, and how much you're trying to pull out of it.
I'm just thinking in my head because I run 4 number 15 pots under one fixture and probably like one of the best I've done was like right around 1.5 grams, but it's like 1,000 grams off from those four, which would put it right
Four
around
four
250.
15-gallon pots.
Yeah, it'd be right just under what 10 ounces then out of the 15. So that ain't even close to the yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you still, it looks like your canopies are still always pretty full.
Yeah, yeah, no. I just
Maybe there's still a
thinking
lot left in that soil when you're done, so to speak, as opposed to just having three plants underneath them.
and it's an interesting metric with that because I know I was running number 10s, and the reason I went to number 15s was that whole idea you just discussed, like given the more root zone, the more. And the other thought I had was the more media that I was given the plant was actually like a bigger battery, so to speak, to
Yeah.
charge the
No,
system.
yeah, totally. Yeah. I like to think of it as breathing room. It's like small plant, big pot. As I think of my outdoor compost pile, plant often with that 2,000 gallons of compost. Just one plant didn't have any limits at all. If I were to start restricting that root space, is when you start seeing the limits.
Okay.
So that's how I gauge it with the ounce per gallon. Kind of tells me how someone's watering, because I know what that pot's capable of. I know what those pellets can produce. So if someone's pulling 15 ounces out of a 10 gallon, someone in the same situation is pulling 6. it just gives me a window in of how to attack what they're doing.
No,
Right or wrong. It's often a consultant basis, so it gives me it's a good way for me to understand it and explain it to them. So everyone, for people that I consult, they have the same amount of plants under the same amount of lights, should relatively perform similar.
Yep. No, I agree. That's cool. Yeah, I dig that. I dig that metric because it didn't pan out to be exactly, like I guess that was a 50% increase in the soil or whatever, but it didn't pan out to be that, but it definitely was an increase in yield. So I mean that was kind of a noticeable thing I noticed too. Was like, yeah, the volume of soil did matter to the system. I think there's some other metrics I can kind of adjust to actually get that improved more. But
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's many ways to look at it, but it says I'm always coming from the soil standpoint because that's why people are often hire me. It's like, how much can I get per pot? I'm like, well, this is how I break it down.
do you make your own soils, or are you just pretty much like I know you mentioned ocean forest because it was popular, but that didn't necessarily mean.
I make all my own stuff. I do that. I do those for tests for people. If they're using my pellets and need to go buy something from the store. I've been on back order for soil for about 5 years. I've never ever been able to catch up to the demand, but I'm hoping I said about 3 weeks away. I should start having like 1,000 bags at least a month. That'd at least be a decent start of playing catch up and getting it out there while I'm still expanding on top of that. But yeah, soon enough they'll all be available, and they do work best with the pellets because it's like I said, it's all the same ingredients, all different parts of those ingredients life cycle. So all those microbes from every stage of composting that stuff down is already present.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's cool. So I didn't realize. Yeah, you're mixing your own soil too. Is that your own recipe or like? I mean, obviously, yeah, your own recipe. But I'm just
right now I'm still using like a little bit of cocoa and peat, and all the compost and amendments are mine. But like I was saying earlier, I'm trying to make my own media without the cocoa or peat, or something that can still. Right now, it looks like one and done type soil. It could be broken down by the time I finish, but I'm working on it. I'm trying to get that. It'd be cool to have a base soil that's all recycled that didn't have to outsource the cocoa or the peat.
no doubt, dude. It's hard enough to find a base soil that doesn't have perlite in it. So.
Yeah, no shit. Well, mine won't.
Well, it is. I mean, it's not what the community or it's just not what the market was traditionally doing, right? It was that one and done kind of soil, and
yeah,
perlite works its light. It functions well. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. Remember you said you have sand and pea gravel in your pots.
Yeah.
And I said that makes it heavy. As far as also lugging that stuff around, and the workload's already hard enough. Or can be.
Yeah, that is definitely something that it added to it. I mean, it's I feel it for sure now. The difference in weight.
Yeah, and like for some, like I said, that one blind guy feels by how heavy the pot is. So like stones and sand might mess that how you judge how wet your pot is and stuff.
That's exactly what I'm battling. That's exactly what's so I re-amended some of the pots. So when I took the number 10 and I added the sand and pea gravel to it to make it the number 15, well, I never weighed how many pebbles, you know what I mean, how much pea gravel and how much sand. Right. So ideally, if I would have weighed all those and I would have made all the pots weigh equally to begin with, then I would have had some ground to go on. But right now,
totally
the weight can be totally different between pots, and it doesn't matter at all what the moisture content is in that water.
Right. Yeah, that's where the bottom feeding kind of comes into the bottom watering. Knowing how wet the tray is, I suppose. As opposed to always watering from the top. But there's a million ways to build a soil, and it's always fun. Like I've been working on taking recycled glass or glass that's found, put it through a rock tumbler, and then you get a whole bunch of little pea-sized marbles, at the end of the day. So it's trying to like find something that I could recycle to use as an amendment in the soil that's not outsourced from somewhere. It still keeps the recycling mindset in play. So stuff like that, just like I sometimes use the hydroton clay balls on the top for a mulch, just to keep that like a couple inches on top to keep it moist. It would also work well there.
That's
And but
interesting. Yeah, haven't heard that on the top before, but
yeah, just have them laying around. Just put like 3-4 inches on top. Keeps the moisture in if I'm not doing like a living mulch on that round or whatnot.
oh,
I typically like to do my microgreens and my sprouts as my living mulch.
okay. So
So I can eat them. I can munch them down and all that. Obviously.
that's cool. So you grow your microgreens right in the pot, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
harvest
Exactly.
what you want, and then just mulch the rest down. And,
Yep. Exactly.
oh yeah,
Never ending greens.
I've always been contemplating throwing like strawberries off to the side or something in a pot and just have some.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. That one guy was telling you about the 22 ounces in a 10-gallon pot. And I was like, man, I had to go over his house and see it for myself. The only new thing that he started doing was he picked up habanero growing, and the whole entire room had like 40 habanero plants in there.
Oh
And then
shit.
he had that one plant that he just watered. I'm like, I've never got 22 ounces in a 10-gallon pot on like a third of a light. He had two other plants under that light. I'm like, maybe these fucking habaneros have something to do with it. It was the only other difference. And there is obviously a lot of companion planting uh, knowledge out there to read upon, but it just it just sparked an idea in my head that I thought was pretty funny as far as variables go.
Yeah, no, I mean that's peppers are kind of becoming a popular one too because they'll house the beneficial insects. So
Yeah,
maybe he's
totally.
onto something with habaneros.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking the top to bottom habaneros everywhere. It wasn't just like a plant in the corner. I was like, dang, that's kind of cool. Made me think 'cause there's definitely a lot of energy in there. More pepper than cannabis. It was a force. So
I
yeah,
think
I was thinking about doing it and not telling anybody, just to see if I had some outrageous yields or something like you did. But yeah, it was fun.
no, that's interesting stuff, man. I like the aspect of that where you're talking like, yeah, they might have been vibing at a different, a different level than the plant was ever used to, and it
Yeah,
made it
exactly.
faster.
Yep, that's how I thought about it.
Yeah. Do you ever I know you mentioned the glass. I've actually used those grow stone. They had that out for a while, and then the company got shut down or something, but or they closed down. But I
Yeah,
had my media on one of the mixes I did. So yeah, the glass actually worked fairly well for
yep.
me.
And there's unlimited amount everywhere, like broken around the streets of Detroit. So it's another tactic that could clean up and turn it into a useful product. It looks kind of cool too if you get some different colored glass. You get green and blue and brown, a little multicolor.
Yeah, yeah.
It looks kind of cool.
I bet it does, man. That's badass. Oh
Yeah, totally.
yeah. Is there I don't know if there's anything else you're wanting to get out or whatever. Otherwise, I'm gonna kind of bullshit with you here. But I didn't write any stuff down either. So
Uh, Yep. The only other question that I wanted to answer that some people had asked me online was that uh like what kind of variables would kind of affect someone using the pellets that would have like a negative result. And we already talked on watering. Obviously, to me, 50% of the your yield is going to be how much you pay attention to your watering.
yeah,
That'll be one. The plant size in the pot we went over as well with some huge plant in a small pot. Doesn't matter how many pellets or whatever you have in there, you're gonna have a rough time, as opposed to bigger root space. Some people get that confused when they switch over from a soil like a hydro system or something or cocoa. You can get a huge plant in a 3-gallon pot if you're feeding it liquids. That doesn't translate to the organic soil world, so you really need to beef up that root zone to accommodate the plant above ground as well. And then one other thing was how people trellis makes it a little bit different too. If some people are super aggressive scroggers, yeah, you're gonna be pulling more out of your soil than someone who's just maybe bambooing a couple branches out and don't have necessarily all those auxins at the plant tip, like someone would who's intensely scrogging. Then I'd say, maybe increase the dose 30% on the pellets just because you're going to be pulling a lot more out of the soil as well. And those are really the only variables that I've come across where people can have varying results.
Yeah, man.
Pretty standard stuff too for, about anything you're using, but that was just, what I could come up with.
So you're saying when you're scrogging aggressively, that's mainly because the plant's bigger, right? You're getting more biomass.
Right, and then all the auctions are uneven. All the plant tips are all essentially at the very top, the same distance from the light, not some 3 feet up here and some 3 feet below where the plant's not going to really be pulling as much out of the pot. Just some people go completely super scrogged, like completely trimmed up to the screen, and completely fanned sideways, and those typically will burn through a soil, my pellets, a lot faster than just a classic bamboo staking.
And they'll be like an older plant too. Is that kind of why? Or
yeah, I mean that makes sense. It's pulled more out to get to that point as well. So it's another variable to it, but nonetheless a variable.
No, I guess I'm picturing in my head too, scrogging it out, and you mentioned the auxins. So yeah, I mean you would have more competing dominant tips. Yeah, growing.
Totally, the metabolism of the plant is way more through the roof than someone that's not that aggressive with that. So just all things to keep in mind when building a pot and building a soil, to kind of have a vision of what it's going to go through by the time it's done. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 rounds to get used to something new, but it's pretty comfortable. I said first time around, people are having great results. I can imagine by the third time, when they start to understand it a little bit and dial it into themselves, even take those results to a new place, to a new height, with just water.
Right, and that's cool, man, and recycled shit. And
yeah, totally. It really punks the system currently of how many people are just pumping out plastic bottles in the name of a medicinal plant. People getting rich in the wrong ways. I think this truly gives back to the spirit of the cannabis, more so bringing it back to helping the earth out in a medicinal factor than driving it for dough, essentially, than leaving trash in your wake.
Right, exactly. Because I do. You mentioned a term, and I'm just going to kind of throw this out for discussion, but plant metabolic rate, or it's really metabolizing fast. And I just want to kind of break that up a little bit for people listening. Like, what are you talking about there when it's
metabolic? Like how fast? Like you can obviously see when you're having good growth. Like when someone will overwater their plant, that metabolism has just slowed down big time, because now you just suffocated the roots. It's not processing as fast. It's not growing as fast. And even if once you correct that problem, it's not like the metabolism kicks right back up and starts processing and synthesizing nutrients and going through photosynthesis as effectively as it would in a quote unquote perfect environment, if there's ever such a thing. But to keep that plant healthy, that's what, again, back to the bottom watering. To me, that keeps it thriving so much, because that variable is now removed of under overwatering. But essentially, the metabolism to me is always directly related to that. Plant health, but overall, for me, it's always watering, unless you're super scorching your plant, with the light issue. But that's what made
like work, right? Like it's the amount of work that, like Michael Phelps, for example, swims in a pool for however many hours a day. He burns so many calories doing that. That's his body's metabolism, doing that work, burning those calories, and that's why he can eat 3 chickens and whatever is on his mind to eat, right? And me and you, right. I don't swim that much. I'm assuming you don't, but
no.
You know what I'm saying? Like we don't do that kind of burning of calories, and I think it's similar with them plants, is what you were getting at.
Oh, yeah, no, that's exactly good way to relate that to that. It's a good example for that, but it's exactly it. Unless you're actually operating at that, you're not going to be able to take up your nutrients if you're not efficiently, swimming that much consistently.
Yeah.
Like the more often you're watering, obviously the better off your plant is, because it's using it. it's thriving. If it's sitting there in a puddle of water, change. No pellets are going to save that.
So when you're doing your pod, I'm just picturing how you're talking the bottom water, and you're putting a tray down and you're putting hydrants in, and then you're setting the pod.
Okay, so so I'll have a saucer, and then like a GoPro tray.
Yep.
So then I'll how they have that that little pocket in the middle of them, if you can imagine. There's like a little circle right in the middle.
Yeah.
So I'll fill that with cocoa. Just kind of pack it down, and then I'll drill a few holes on the side of the GoPro where it sits in the tray, and then I put my plant on top of it, and then the roots will grow through the GoPro into the tray. So it's not. So let's say if I just keep a little bit of water in the tray, the pot's not sitting in it, just that GoPro with that straw, if you will.
Okay.
The little middle acts like a straw, so the pot's not sitting in it, but just a little tiny bit of it is. But the roots find it within a week, and they'll just drink those trays dry. I have one friend who he'll fill it with 2 inches of water, and then put a bubbler down there so it doesn't get the film or whatnot, and it just drinks it up as it pleases, just like a straw. But or you put it, if you do put it right in the tray like I do my veg, then I'll just keep the little tiny bit, not enough to overwater it, but to keep it thriving.
No, that's interesting.
The straw technique in flower stops me from ever overwatering.
And you're basically making a wicking point versus having full contact to the bottom of the
exactly.
There, yeah, that's it. Because I run the earth boxes. I'm sure you've seen that kind of design of sip.
These only cost me $3 to make. As far as spending money on them or whatnot, just with the drill, and it works. So if anything, you could underwater, but you can never overwater because you're not just sitting in the tray, obviously.
Gotcha. No, that's a cool idea, because that's one of the thoughts I always had to that SIP system is you don't necessarily want the whole bottom of the sitting in that water and being wet, the whole bottom layer. You want a wicking point, and that's
it can just drink it as it wants to.
Yeah.
Then it's even convenient if you have to leave for a couple days, for whatever reason, you can fill those saucers up, and that at least they have water. Just as a little backup plan.
Nice. How long you been doing it that way?
5-6 years.
No doubt, man. That's cool. A big deal. Oh yeah.
Totally. Got it from what was it called? There was a big Octopots. There's a thing called Octopot, 2013. They're popular-ish right around then, and it was like a deep water but individual. You put your pot in it. It was a big square, and you kind of put your nutrients underneath it, and it just sucked up the nutrients as it needed to. And I just kind of reworked that idea and with the organic system.
Okay.
The whole wicking concept. It was pretty, they've already been out there, but it was just cheap for just a couple bucks to be able to do. And
I dig
really
it.
Regulates the plant. It takes a lot of guesswork out of it.
And I've seen several different designs and ways of doing it. That's why I was kind of breaking down the little intricacies of how yours was working, so well.
Yeah, I have some pictures I'll post, follow up to this meeting with some of the test results on the gypsum or the calcium, the oyster and the eggshell.
Yep.
And some of those pictures of the roots and what I meant by with the watering and stuff.
Cool.
Totally.
So then in the bottom, then you put the pellets in the bottom of that pot, and then so that's kind of in the bottom there wicking with it.
Yep. Exactly. And so most of the moisture's down there, keeping that reservoir nice and wet. Yeah, obviously if the soil's not wet there, the roots won't be able to get there to take the nutrients.
Right.
You need a fully wet pot in order for the roots to have full access to the whole entire pot.
So do you ever top water then?
Like I said, I like to do a enzyme tea once in a while. I'll do that from the top.
Okay. And then just add what you want and let it go. And
just maybe once every 10 days or whatnot, 10, 12 days from the top, and just keep kind of regulate them from the bottom.
Yeah, because when you originally said you were putting pellets down, I guess in my head I was picturing those being in that wet part of the tray, and my mind was kind of just that's anaerobic digestion, right?
No, that'll get nasty quick.
Yeah.
In the bottom of the actual pot, not in the saucer or nothing.
Gotcha.
But
Yeah,
just like you would a super soil, but just throw a couple handfuls down and pack the rest of the plant in.
no doubt,
Yeah,
man.
good stuff. So far so good. I said I can't wait to have my next blend. My next grow I'll be doing with 100% all locally sourced for my flower. It'll be the first time not using the rock dust, so it'll kind of be a fun one for me to see if I can get it supplement enough phosphorus.
So you're looking at the rock dust as being your phosphorus source?
Well, it's like I just use soft rock phosphate. Like I said, I don't use guano or bone or any animal stuff.
Gotcha. Because yeah, I was looking at like some of my rock dust. Yeah, I mean they list the phosphorus. It's like the P2O whatever 5.
Yeah.
I don't know. I said that wrong, but anyway, yeah, they listed in that form, that oxidized form, and on a lot of them. But I didn't realize that was like a huge role of it. But you're talking the rock phosphorus.
Yeah, I'm just, yep, totally. That's like have you tried that Build a Bloom no, yeah, Build a Soil Build a Bloom? You ever seen that product?
I've seen it, yeah, and I haven't tried it though.
Yeah, that's like soybean meal, gypsum, and soft rock phosphate only, and that's like a 3-10-2 or something like that. And it works well. Something with the proteins and the soy breaking down some of the phosphate right away. Off uses it, chelates it on site, so it's effective. It works. And I was surprised to see that like brewery grain was 2-3% phosphorus, similar to some of the other amendments I buy from the store. It's like wow, there's a lot everywhere as long as you piece the puzzle together the right way. There's a lot in almost everything I tested. So this will be the first run where I'm not supplementing any extra, just doing it all from waste. See how it goes.
Yeah.
Maybe it just means I have to add another pound of pellets, to supplement a little bit extra that's not there.
And that's kind of, I guess, in my mind's eye, that's kind of what you're doing is you got a goal of an NPK range in your mind, and like you're just trying to piece all these ingredients.
Yep. And obviously, it's not all perfect science because you don't know exactly how all that's bonded differently in the soil. But you get a rough idea when you start playing with them enough times. You can feel the resemblance when you grow two things next to each other. When you start playing with the amendments for so long, I can actually, I can feel the difference in them and what I need to do to achieve what I want to achieve. So it's like a sixth sense, as with any job, you get real dedicated to your work and it becomes a craft. Then, you start doing things, start taking it and moving it forward, where someone their first day might not have that rhythm yet.
Right, no doubt. Yeah, it's like maybe like foliar feeding, like everybody that starts that is kind of nervous at first, but shit, it's like after you've done the same 3 or 4 whatever things, it's kind of old hat. You just know what it's gonna do, like.
Yeah, exactly. That's like when I was talked about earlier, making all those super soils for so many years, trying to find the perfect recipe, and I could mess up on a recipe and it would still come out the same. I was like splitting hairs in the wrong way, chasing the monkey around. I was still getting good results, but I didn't really, I want to say didn't know why, but there's only one way of getting to that at that stage in my life. Now it's, you can do it several different ways. I can just grab powders and throw them in a pot essentially without measuring anything. You can get pretty close to the rough idea. Because like I said, you're never getting down to zero by the time that crop is done. So there's always something extra. Just a matter of how much and how you unlock it with your microbes. It makes a big deal.
Yeah, no doubt where everything's at. Trying to get a base on her. So.
Yep.
Cool, man. Yeah, that is pretty much what I got covered. Unless there was more you want to go over, I know.
Nope. No, that was great. I went over everything I wanted to. I had a little list in case I got sidetracked. But no, everything that was great.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, I'll follow up with some posts online with a reference to some of the pictures of things I was talking about.
Yeah, definitely do, man. Because I know we got a great community here, and like a lot of us love to support people that have been on the show. So like for sure, man.
Cool.
If you want to shout out some of the ways they can reach out if they want or find the stuff.
Please. Anyone any questions? Feel free to hit me up on Instagram at Intergalactic Gardens or happycoast.org. There's an email there. and it gets answered every single day, or on my sometimes every day on my Instagram. But yeah, here to help. If anyone ever wants to try anything out, seeds from any of my breeding, or the pellets, and if anything, stay tuned for the compost and soil to come. And really, for anybody's outdoor needs this year, uh, about let's see, about $150, and you'll have 4 or 5 pounds per plant. It's pretty for a couple $100. What comes in the end of it? I'm happy to extend any services or any knowledge if anyone has any questions for this upcoming season.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Everybody's probably
And compost orders are already being made. Last year I sold out before May even hit, and people always are wondering a month later. But there's a way online right now you can put yourself in line for a compost even. So no one wants it delivered yet, but you can put yourself in line so we can go through who we need to order. First things first. But yeah, it's gonna be an exciting season. I appreciate everybody listening.
That's badass, man. Hell yeah. 5 years out. So no, I'm gonna probably let you just exit out of the Zoom. I'll close out this meeting, and then after this, we do fire up, what we call the wormhole. I mentioned it before the show. We do those pretty much, a lot of the nights of the week. So you're
Nice.
more than welcome to jump in those too. So.
Right on. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate you having me today. It was great chatting.
Oh yeah.
All right. Peace out.
Yeah, peace. Oh man, that was great, dude. Josh, Intergalactic's doing some really cool stuff, man, and I'm excited to have the chance to talk with him. I hope you guys all enjoyed it, and I know our community here, you guys will be reaching out, at least just saying, hey, what's up, and telling them it's cool or something like that. So yeah, man, I'm gonna close this out as far as the organic takeover portion. I'll have to get with Eagle to get the room back fired up or whatever. So if he's available, we'll probably do that after a quick little bathroom break. But yeah, man, I always appreciate everybody hanging out. Just doing some of these discussions, and hopefully we got to learn something from it. And I hope you guys all pay that forward and do something nice